Welcome to Laker Central. I'm Alex. That's Vinay, and I guess we got a bit of a treat tonight, Vinay, with that 131-106 thrashing that the Lakers gave the Clippers, and the man of the hour, the man of the night, Talen Horton-Tucker, 33 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. I think he had at least 3 steals. Dude was amazing. Kyle Kuzma chipped in 25 points. Lakers played exceptionally well without LeBron, Anthony Davis, Dennis Schroeder. But I know we're gonna get to all the guys that played, man. But let's just start with the man of the night, the guy that's trending, Taylor Horton Tucker. What'd you see out of him, man?
He was fantastic today. The entire Lakers team shot out of their minds. It felt like they're shooting like 80% from three, so that was nice because we didn't really get games like that. But he's been fantastic. Like he was better than he was. I thought he was good last game, and he was even better this game. And they even used him. They didn't use him too much in like that pick and roll like they
Yeah.
did maybe game one. They used him more. I want to say he was probably cutting more off the ball. It almost felt like we were watching two different offenses, right? Like the first game, we saw more pick and roll with Dennis and isolations with Montrez. And then, Taylor Horton Tucker running a bunch of pick and roll and stuff like that. But then this game, there's no Dennis. And then they start Gasol instead of Montrez. And like all of the Lakers cutters are all flying all over the place. If they don't get a layup, then they're kicking it out to somebody. KCP comes out and just starts drilling every single three that he's attempting and stuff like that. The game was it was like two different teams. I felt like I was watching two different teams, even though like a lot of the same players were playing. It felt like I was watching two different teams, and that was nuts, man. It was uh, it was very awesome. I'm very, very, very excited for Horton Tucker. He
Hmm.
shows a lot of promise. Um, we actually got to see exactly what I asked for in the pregame. I wanted to see what Tucker would do if Pat Beverly was um, the guy who was supposed to defend him. And you know what's the one thing I noticed that Pat loves to do but wouldn't do it to Tucker? He wouldn't press Tucker full
Mm,
court. That was the first time I've
you're right
seen. I
about
know it's
that.
just a preseason game, but even last game against Schroeder, Pat was pressing Schroeder full court sometimes, and he didn't try that at all with Tucker today. And I wonder if it's because he thought that if he got beat, then obviously everybody would be in trouble because then this guy would
Mm.
get going downhill and stuff like that. So I mean, there's just so much stuff to talk about. But just all around, he was excellent. And lo and behold, like we talked about how Tucker and Kuzma can play together because they don't have the same skill set. They operate differently. There was plays where Tucker got all the way to the rim only to be kind of walled off from an easy look. And he set up, Kuzma's waiting right there in the corner for him. And he nails a three. I think that happened like earlier in the game. There's a lot of situations where that sort of thing happened. And it was great, man. I don't know what else to say like in terms of like where his development is at.
Mm.
He's clearly confident in himself,
Oh
clearly.
yeah.
So I mean that's got to bode well for him in the future. And I like you can't hide it. Like I was watching the Spectrum stream, but I apparently the people were telling me like the national audience was like very impressed with him too as well and stuff like that. So I'm very, very happy. This is a real good situation to be in. But like we talked about in the pregame, ESPN media is going to do its fear mongering and stuff like that. And I'm already seeing Kendrick Perkins tweets on the timeline saying, I mean, this tweet that I'm seeing from him is ridiculous. But I'm not gonna bring it up right now on this, but because we're talking about Tucker. But Tucker's great, man. They're gonna have to find minutes for him. He's good. That there's no other way to describe it. You're not going to be able to play him just during blowouts. Like he's going to be part of your regular rotation, but it's a good problem to have. And I trust Frank to figure out exactly what lineups they can put him into. And to be honest, like with Caruso like getting hurt because of the way he plays defense and stuff like that, it may
Mm.
actually help a guy like him who like plays balls to the wall when it comes to his defense and always gets like nicked
Right.
up and stuff like that. Because I know that was an issue that we had last season. Guys going in and out of lineups because they would get hurt. Bradley And then Green was a good example of two guys where that would happen.
Hmm.
So he was great today, man. I don't even know what specific things to highlight, to be honest, because everything he did today was so good.
Well, look, I guess we know Frank Vogel wasn't lying about how he was, killing everybody in Lakers practices, right? Because game one he had 18 points. I think he had 9 rebounds in game one as well. Game two, here he is with 33 points. I mean, he the one issue with game one, if you could pick out an issue, was he didn't shoot well. And then tonight he came out fully confident. He was knocking down his shots. Um, I think he shot 68% from the field. His three ball was going down. He had a couple step backs. He's just extremely confident. He's really sure of himself. And to see him come out game two against the Clippers, who are obviously a good team, they didn't play Paul George and Kawhi all game, but still they played. And it didn't matter whether it was their normal starters on the floor or if it was the guys at the end of the bench. Talen kept doing whatever Talen wanted to do. And this Lakers offense was just night and day compared to last year. Last year when LeBron and AD went to the bench, man, they struggled to generate points. In this game without LeBron or AD, Marc Gasol and his passing, he opened up so much for so many people. And it was just really nice to see guys like Kuzma cutting. I know you talked about that but in the pregame and we were all tweeting about it, but Kuzma's off ball action, it was there. He was active as well. I think Talen got probably hotter than anybody thought that he would, and that opened some things up also for other guys. But the Lakers came out guns blazing, and I actually thought that this game you'd see the Clippers kind of come out and press them a little bit more. The Clippers might be a little more hungrier this game because they lost the first one. We might see a little more of their offense and defense. And I don't know. I don't know if it was just the Lakers just outclassed them tonight or the Clippers didn't put a lot of effort in. Whatever the case is, the Lakers have found themselves a guy in Talen Horton-Tucker. And it's not about him taking minutes from Kyle Kuzma or Kuzma taking minutes from him. They play two distinct positions. They play very differently. What this basically does is Frank Vogel, what we saw in the playoffs and in the finals, he treats the Lakers almost like a Swiss Army knife. He's got all these different lineups that he can run, and this year, this is as deep a team as I've seen the Lakers roll out in a really long time. And when LeBron and AD aren't out there, my assumption was okay, with Schroeder and Trez would be the guys that would be getting buckets. Well, tonight Schroeder didn't play. Trez, I'm not sure what he finished with. He finished with 19 points, which that's crazy. I didn't even. It's the quietest 19 that I think Trez has had in a while. But Kuzma and THT had it rolling.
Yeah, and the whole part of what makes this whole process work is that they have complementary skills. Like this Lakers roster this season and the moves that they made in free agency are all complementary moves. Some of them are complementary to like LeBron and AD, but
Right.
some of the stuff is complementary like within each other and stuff like that. So it's just the part that's annoying is this is not something that should be a conversation because it's a good situation to be in. But it's going to be a situation because you got to have something about the Lakers, some sort of dysfunction or some sort of issue to talk about as it relates to the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody's going to try to come up with it. And it seems like Kendrick Perkins is insistent on doing that. But and I'm sure I will make some noise about it myself on the timeline about how dumb that is. But I just he's good. Talen's so good. And clearly Kuzma, if he plays his role, right, which is just cut to the rim, be a 3-and-D guy, play defense, don't do anything else, the straight line drives, don't do stuff that's outside of what you are as a player.
Right.
This team can be very, very successful. And like, will minutes be an issue? For sure. But at the same time, like we are also in a situation where it's a condensed season.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be minutes available for certain guys. Like, I mean, if the Lakers look this good, if the Lakers look this good in preseason, do we even see Braun and AD in the preseason at all? Do we even see Braun and AD towards the beginning of the season at all?
Well, they
We may
said
not.
on the national broadcast, Mark Jackson said the Lakers had announced LeBron and AD would play in the Suns game this week.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't hear that on Spectrum, but that would make sense. But I mean, even then, it's just you could even have offenses where it's just like LeBron and AD are just kind of there. You know, they're
Yep.
getting in their cardio while they, just while these other guys are doing the heavy lifting. Like this kind of stuff, like this kind of stuff is a good problem to have. The Lakers have
Mhm.
not had this problem in a very, very long time. And having I guess the only way I can describe it is the Lakers don't have positional redundancy. They don't have skill redundancy. They don't have a bunch of guys that all do the same exact thing, and
Right.
that's a good thing. That's the reason why we were so good in the playoffs, and that's the reason why we ended up winning a championship. We didn't have like the guys on paper, top to bottom, with points per game and all the stats and accolades 1 through 10 that we could stack up against another roster. But we had guys that were just excellent in their specific roles, and so that's what it is. Like I think that's the way that I don't even know what to say, man. It's a good problem to have. Like
It's a,
how else do you possibly destroy? You have too much talent.
I
That's
look.
literally what I think. And we got
I
we
don't.
got an old we got an old guy LeBron that's just like, all right, bro, like just take a seat, Bron. Like you can go ahead and have your wine days and stuff like that. We'll take care of it. It's a good problem to have.
You can never have too much talent like that. That's
Yeah,
just ridiculous. Now there obviously have been teams that have been put together to have kind of like too much overlap in their talent set, but this Lakers team doesn't have that. And in a condensed season, in a short off season, LeBron going into year 18, like those guys are going to need to rest. They're not going to. You don't need LeBron to play 35 minutes every single night this season. You don't need Anthony Davis to do that as well. So those guys are going to rest. And there's going to be minutes. There's going to be games where maybe stretches of games where guys like THT and Kuzma they need to play heavy minutes and they need to step up. And I think that the Lakers having such a well-rounded offense, I think
yeah,
bodes really well for this team long term. And also, man, look, I was watching this in my living room, and I kept finding myself like on the edge of my couch every time Marc Gasol would make a pass, and I just kept
yeah.
thinking like the Lakers
Unreal,
had,
man.
even if they didn't finish the pass or finish the play, his ability to see over the like Ibaka was on him, and Gasol's a good 2 or 3 inches, maybe bigger than that, taller than Ibaka. He was seeing
Yeah,
over everybody, and for
yeah,
this Lakers team last year to really struggle on the offensive end when LeBron would go to the bench, they bring Rondo in, but Rondo couldn't really stretch the floor, right? And so everybody would just double down on AD and tighten up around the basket. But with Marc Gasol out there at the top of the key, whipping
yeah,
passes around the way he's doing, guys running around, cutting, coming off curls. This Lakers team in this particular game looks so smooth that I'm
yeah.
just like, this is crazy.
That stretch, there was a sequence where there was back to back plays. Um, there was a down screen curl cut to Kuzma.
Hmm.
Gasol hit him right on the money for a layup. And then there was another one, which I want to say was a back cut by KCP. I have to rewatch the tape to see what it was. I'm sure I'll do a write up on it sometime soon. But there was like a sequence, I want to say like 3 to 4 minutes, where Gasol was just hitting guys like in
Yep.
stride, and it almost turned the way he described it is it turned the defense, like it really put them on their heels because they were afraid to come and help in case like a guy like KCP would get a dribble handoff. Then he may get a wide open three at the top of the key. But if you tried to hedge, like start cheating that way, and KCP or Kuzma back cut you, it was a layup. And there was actually a play where they set that play up, and KCP was going to back cut and on my okay, so Pat was on Talen Horton-Tucker, and he went to go set this down screen, and KCP saw the way Pat was standing on the screen, and he was about to back cut. So Pat realizes that he's about to get back cut for a layup. So Pat just runs into KCP. The ref calls a blocking foul. KCP
Hmm.
gets free throws. I want to say it was towards the end of the second quarter, or like towards the end of the first half is when it happened. And you see Pat going like, "Hey, what did I do? I didn't do anything wrong." But if you watch that play again, you'll notice what exactly that happened. Gasol put so much pressure with his like ball pass fake and then setting up the
Hmm.
guy that he wants to set up that it's a nightmare for guys who aren't like on top of their game when it like if you're trying to take a play off when it comes to going around the screen, Gasol's gonna hurt you. Like he had the play where he like just turned 180 the other way and threw the ball, whipped the ball with his right hand. Like into a leading Talen Horton-Tucker or something like that. Like I was like,
You know,
dude,
you know who he
go
reminded
ahead.
me of? Everybody talks about like, Jokic right now being this great passing big man, and he is a great passing big man. But you and I remember seeing, Chris Webber and Vladi and guys like that. But
Yeah, Sabonis was the guy who used to make
Sabonis,
those kind of yeah,
those whip passes that Gasol was doing, I kept thinking he reminds me of Sabonis because Sabonis was also a
yeah,
really big guy. Also,
big
I'm
body,
like,
yeah, yeah.
this is crazy.
Yeah, and he was on point. There's another sequence which I'm sure I'll pull and share with everybody soon. Was um he looks to Kuzma. So Kuzma makes a down screen cut. They switch. They pick him
Hmm.
up. He's right at the middle. Gasol like kind of fakes to throw it to him, but he's not able to get it. Kuzma curls all the way around. Gasol gives it up. It goes back to Kuzma. Gasol resets to the right hand side of the block, sets a screen or something like that. I don't know what the play was. I wasn't even sure it was designed or if it was organic action. Like, did they just know to do this? And Kuzma gets a straight line drive to the rim. Somebody comes really late to contest it. And instead of taking the layup, which is something that Kuzma would have done last year,
Hmm.
and maybe take like a bad floater, he kicks it like to a wide open Gasol. Oh, so Gasol's man leaves to go defend the rim. That's what happened. Sorry. And Kuzma instinctively kicks it right to Gasol. Gasol hits a wide open like mid range jumper. And I was just like, dude, we don't even have Dennis Schroeder or LeBron or AD on the floor, and we're getting like beautiful action. Like this is beautiful half court offense. There's no other way to describe it. And I had I forgot who else I was who tweeted at me in regards to it, but like you can just tell that if you rewatch this game, you can just tell that every time Gasol touches the ball, the moment he touches it, he's looking. He's looking
Hmm.
at Kuzma. He's looking at KCP. He's looking at, I would eventually assume, like Quinn Cook played today, but it's probably a good chance that Alex Caruso takes a lot of those minutes from Quinn Cook. Um, he's looking at those guys and basically telling them, okay, like move. Like you've got to cut.
Yep.
I'm waiting for you guys to cut. And he does this other thing. Where he'll look in the direction of where the cutter is, but he'll be like looking at his teammate, right?
Hmm.
And that's like the signal to the cutter, like, hey, like back cut right now. And he's always going to pass it to the cutter, but he's always looking somewhere else. So it's not like a no look pass; it's more like a misdirection look sort of
Yeah.
pass. And he did a couple of those earlier today, and man, after watching Rondo, like just like look off so many good cuts from Caruso and Kuzma, just the body language, man. Like look at the body language of the team. Like this is probably one of the few games where I haven't seen Kuzma be like frustrated with himself because he's having a bad shooting or whatever. He was getting hit in stride. He was active. He was great on defense. Same thing for THT. Like it's too good, bro. Like the Lakers, what Rob has done with this team, finding like the IQ guys, and even
Right.
Montrez. Like Montrez was making passes out of the high post that you wouldn't expect him to do. So it's just we're in a really great situation. I just want us to stay healthy. That's all it is, and I think we have a great chance.
Well, for them to look so confident without LeBron and Anthony Davis, like they came out, KCP came out, knocked down a couple threes. Like they they weren't worried about the Clippers at all. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
at all. And so I do want to ask you about the Clippers. Is there anything? Are you taking anything away from these first two games with them? Are they just uninterested, or what's like what is it?
So Kawhi is definitely not taking these games seriously. Like both these games, it seems like he's just kind of like I don't even think he's doing cardio. I think he's just I think I think he's just participating because he has to because his temperament has been kind of like blasé when it comes to
Right.
when he's playing. I will say this: towards the end of the first half, I think it was pretty. I think Ty Lue must have told those guys that they were going to be playing the second half. Um, but I want to say like the second half of the second quarter, maybe the last 6 minutes, there
Mm-hmm.
was a timeout, and out of that timeout, the Clippers were playing like pretty aggressively, like deep, like they were playing like regular season basketball or playoff
Right.
basketball. Serge was like pressing Gasol, and everybody was pressing
Yep.
everybody in the half court and stuff like that. And the Lakers did well enough to hold on to a lead up until like basically that lineup went out. Does that mean that like Kawhi was playing 100% Kawhi? Probably not. But it was the interesting part to see was that the Lakers, even though they weren't necessarily matching the intensity,
Mm-hmm.
of defense that the Clippers are doing, the offense was still good enough to keep them afloat. And that's, we talked about in the pregame. That is something that plagued the Lakers last season. Every time a non-LeBron lineup would get on the court, we might as well just fold, right? Like the game might as well be
Yep.
done. And we're not seeing that, right? And we did it with Talen Horton-Tucker leading the way for this team for the second game in a row. So, hey man, what do you have? He had like 30. Let me see what do you have
33.
here?
He had
Like,
33
hey,
and 10 and
he had
4.
33 and in 41 minutes. Kuzma had 25 in 40 minutes. I probably only remember like maybe one play where Kuzma maybe kind of made like a boneheaded play, but everything was like within the flow of the offense. So what more can you ask for, man? Like it's Markeith had 11, Pope had 16 because he couldn't miss from three. Quinn Cook couldn't miss from three. He had
Yeah,
double digit.
they had 6 guys in
Montrez
double
had
digits.
19. Yeah, it's just I think Rob has done a tremendous job giving the right guys that this team needs. Vogel's just got to make it work. He's got to find the right lineups, the right permutations, and all that sort of stuff that he has to do. And it seems as though the noise that may come from the national media may be about Kuzma and
Mm-hmm.
Tucker's minutes and stuff like that. This is just my opinion. Those two guys have nothing to do with each other. They actually help each other be better on the court because they have complementary skill sets. And I would hope that Laker fans also see it that way too as well. Like the way Talen Horton-Tucker is being asked to handle the ball, Frank Vogel has never asked like Kuzma to handle the ball that way. Like it's just
Right.
not going to happen, and he doesn't have the handle to do it. But that 3-and-D stuff that Kuzma was doing today, that's exactly what we need, man. Like we need that sort of action, and he's gonna get paid for something like that. Like teams are gonna be like, wow, this guy put up 25 and he hardly dribbled the ball, which is true. He hardly dribbled the ball like out of those half court actions. He was just cutting and taking layups.
Well,
So.
and that's what you want out of Kuzma. Like his
Mhm.
handles aren't as bad as Danny Green's were, but you don't want Kuzma dribbling way too much. Like he needs to be coming off screens, shooting the ball as soon as he gets it if he's open, things like
Yeah,
that. The Lakers
yeah,
shot
absolutely.
72% from three, man. Like
That's
like
nuts.
for years, this Lakers team, it didn't matter who was on the roster. Like we just could not shoot.
Mhm.
If we could get to middle of the road shooting or be middle of the league, that was like great for us.
Yeah,
We've been bad. 72%. I mean, these guys, they couldn't miss, and I don't look. They're not going to lead the league in 3-point shooting. I mean, maybe they could, but I don't think they will.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
think that
maybe.
I think this is going to be an above league average 3-point shooting team this year. I think they're better. And those open baskets that they're going to get, obviously with LeBron and AD, but Marc Gasol clearly can lead guys into open shots.
Yeah,
I think they're going to shoot a lot better than we have in recent memory.
yeah. It's there's like there's an energy that comes from like even just seeing layups go in that helps your jump shooters and stuff like that. So like even for guys like Kuzma, if he's able to start games off getting one or two layups off of the strength of back cutting his defender, like he back cut Patrick Patterson like twice in the game, and then like the second time he had to like he got fouled I think by Luke Kennard because he didn't want to give it the reverse layup. But
Mm-hmm.
like when you do simple plays like that, like guys like Kuzma, they get into a rhythm shooting free throws or getting layups at the rim. It builds his confidence so that when you do end up in a 3-and-D situation, there's a good chance that he'll make them. He shot 4 for 7 from three today. That last one I think was like that heave from half
Yeah.
court, so I won't count that. So he's 3 for 6. That's 50%, which is great, and obviously it's a very small sample size, but
Mm-hmm.
he literally just has to go 1 for 3. If he can go 1 for 3 every single game he plays, and that's like closer to league average, he's going to be fine. That's really all it is. And I think last playoffs, I was the one who was sharing the stat on Twitter, and then somebody picked it up and decided to take over that tweet. But like if the Lakers shot like 30% or better, they were like almost undefeated, like in the playoffs. So that's how low the bar is for the Lakers in terms of having LeBron James and Anthony Davis on this team. Like even if you hit league average, you may have a chance of blowing out a lot of teams. But even if you hit below league average, but somewhere between 30 and 35% from three as a team, you're gonna be fine. Like that's not a bad situation to be in. And um, aside from all the ball movement and stuff like that, the quality of shots that they got for themselves as a team was wonderful.
Hmm.
I thought that was really great. All the threes were good quality threes. The layup setups were all great. Everything, it was all great, man. It's I'm trying to think of something bad to talk about right now, and I can't quite think of like I would say maybe the recurring theme that I've had
Hmm.
that I'm a little concerned about is Montrez getting overwhelmed by big bigs, like real big bigs, like
Yeah,
the Montrez
like
versus
Zoo.
Zubac thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's going to be something that I think the Lakers are going to have to keep their eye on, and figure out like a team based rebounding strategy if they're going to be playing him at small ball center. We didn't have that issue with Dwight because Dwight is an unreal rebounder in himself. So that's the way I kind of see it. But that may be something that we want to keep an eye on, just because you give up too many offensive boards, you start fouling, and once you start fouling, team gets free throws, that sort of thing. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, Trez isn't going to be great at defending those bigger guys, but
Yeah.
at least a good thing about that, the high level guys like the Jokic and the Embiids, the Karl Anthony Towns, you're only going to see them a couple times this season. And Anthony Davis and Marc Gasol are, they're more than good enough to shoulder the load. Hopefully, Trez won't
Mhm.
have to guard those guys for extended minutes. But then again, who knows what the Lakers will do with their extra roster spot or when buyouts happen, things like that. So I think they'll tighten that up if they notice that he just cannot hold his own. Um,
Yeah.
but Frank Vogel also talked about, they were asking about THT, and he basically said, "I'll find something negative to say, talk to him about
Yeah.
or whatever." But like this team right now, the way they're rolling, I can't find any fault. Can they get better? Yes, they can get better. That
For
all those
sure.
things take
They
time,
put up they put up 131 points in
right?
a
Like
preseason game.
this is I look, man. I expected more of a fight from the Clippers. I really did. And they didn't put one up. And the game got close at the end of the second half. I think it was within like six or something. I thought
Mhm.
that's when they really want to make a run and maybe take the lead, but they didn't. And after that, the game it just never it got closer than that the rest of the game. But I don't really know what to complain about. Like I haven't been on the TL since we started, so I don't know if there anyone is upset about anything. Like right now, Lakers fans should be riding a high. Like this should be.
Yeah, I would say
My
that
wife was
that's
sitting
go
when
ahead,
the
go ahead.
game first came on. My wife was sitting next to me, and the Lakers got rolling, and I just said, like, the Lakers haven't been like this in a long time. Like this is
Yep.
different. This is. We've talked about it before, man. This is like I'm not saying they're going to three-peat or anything like that, but like this is like when you had Shaq and Kobe, and their supporting cast was good, and you just knew they were good enough to win every game. Not that they would win every game, but they were just so confident in their ability to win games, and I'm just I'm just excited.
Yeah. The lead highlight from the game was Talen Horton-Tucker Kawhi
Man.
with his own move. Lazy with the dribble, and he'll just snatch it right out of your hand. There was actually a couple of plays where Talen was the guy who was like a little late on the rotation on the closeout
Mhm.
on like a 3-point shooter. And then you see his hands like kind of go out, and I was just like, oh shit, he's gonna block a couple of people on some of these because some of these guys don't realize how long his wingspan is when he closes the gap when he's like trying to close out late on a three or something like that. So I would say the other thing that was really good to watch was good to see KCP come in and just be like kind of fresh from the bounce and stuff like that. He
Yeah.
looked good. He looked good on his cuts.
Mhm.
Um, I would also say that Montrez's second bounce when he misses shots is
Yeah.
really nice.
Mhm.
That he had a couple plays where he caused a lot of havoc on the inside, and he beat the defender to the offensive rebound just off the strength of just having extra hustle. Those kind of small things, man. That's what frustrates defenses, and then they'll start fouling you and stuff like that. Um, the game got a little chippy. I don't know if you had that feeling. I feel like maybe in the second quarter the game got a little chippy when the Clipper starters knew that they were going to eventually come out, so
Mhm.
they kind of ratcheted up the intensity. But I thought the Lakers held it together really well, and then they just rolled them in the second half. So it's great, man. It's great to see from the mentality standpoint too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like how they closed this game. I thought kind of, I don't know, it was like the fourth quarter, and the Lakers had a couple turnovers. They were missing shots, and I'm glad Frank called a couple timeouts to kind of rally the troops. Like, okay, it's a preseason game, but let's clean some of this stuff up. I mean, earlier on, Pat Bev was doing Pat Bev things, trying to get under their skin, and like,
Hmm.
he would foul him and then act like he didn't really foul anybody, like that, just doing what he does. But
Hmm.
I think the Clippers know, man. I think they know that they might have thought they were better than the Lakers last year. I think they know they're not better than the Lakers right now.
That team, I mean, as much as I don't want to waste any breath talking about them, uh, because of obviously who they are, but I want to say that like that team feels incomplete. There's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
about that team that doesn't feel complete. I don't know if it's a personality thing or maybe it's just because of their body language, like like their body language from what's it called? Um, but something's like off about that team, and I don't know what it'll be. If it'll be like a personnel change or something like that in the end, but uh, I'm sure they'll figure it out. I mean, they have championship aspirations, so I guess we'll see what happens. But um, it's that is I think somebody I saw on the timeline somebody said that they asked Ty Lue about the offense and they
Hmm.
said like their offense wasn't good or something like that. And I was just like, yeah, your offense wasn't good. You guys were doing the same exact thing that you guys are doing the same exact thing you guys did against Denver, which was the LA Fitness style offense of like,
Hmm.
hey, all right, go ahead, your turn. All right, go ahead,
Yep.
your turn. I think the only actions that were they actually ran were like the pin down screens for Paul George and the pick and roll for Paul George. That was about it. Like even Batum's been like almost non-existent like these two games. I would have thought that like we would see something, but he
Right.
got back cut a bunch of times for layups, and I was just like, all right, man, I don't know what's going on here, but that's not my problem. We're focused on our young guys and how they can help the old guys and the new guys too.
One thing I took away also, man, like kind of just watching the sidelines, is that LeBron, he was up out at like half court cheering the Lakers
Yeah,
on. And
yeah,
remember, that was a big thing for this squad in the bubble because there weren't any fans there. You had, Dwight and JaVale. These guys were super excited on the sideline. So I thought with some of those guys gone, that might change a bit. But to have your superstars right back out there cheering every single play, that speaks to the camaraderie that these guys have been building the last couple seasons. That at least since LeBron got there, and you get these veterans in there, and Anthony Davis, and they're cheering these guys on. And even this season, like Jeannie said, Staples Center's not going to have fans, so they're going to need
hmm,
to really. My wife said to me, she was like, "This looks different," and it looked more different than the bubble, right? Like the bubble, you had
yeah,
the
yeah,
had the virtual seats and all that, but this was just like a big black tarp over all the seats, and
yeah,
so I
yeah.
don't know if that. I assume it'll look a little bit different when the real regular season starts, but these guys are going to have to kind of rally each other, and cheer each other on like they did in the bubble.
Yeah, it's going to be that aspect of it's going to become more and more important. Like just the camaraderie, like on the court, but like you can't fake it, right?
No.
Like that camaraderie has to be there off the court for you to do it on the court. So if guys are just like cool and casual as it goes, as practices and stuff like that go on, it won't translate to the court. And it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case for the Lakers. It seems like the Lakers guys are all bought in. Like I was watching one of the timeouts, and you see like Marc Gasol like talking to Markeith, and you see him talking to like Montrez, like no, don't do this, go this way and do that.
Right.
Like this is what they're trying to do to you, and blah blah blah. So it's just like this knowledge sharing that's happening. Like even
Hmm.
when you're not on the court is great. And there was one where like I forgot what it was. Like THC was talking to LeBron about something. I guess he fouled somebody by accident or something like that, and he ended up like towards the Lakers bench, and then like he was saying something to LeBron. LeBron was telling him something, and then like THC acknowledged like whatever it was that LeBron was trying to tell him. But it's just like that kind of stuff is good stuff
Hmm.
from like a fan perspective to be able to see. So, um, look, man, uh, this team is good. I
Yep.
don't know. I know it's two preseason games, but I know what the problems with this team were last year. We both know. Many Laker fans know what the problem was with this team last year, and it seems as though the Lakers have very thoroughly addressed it. Have they lost a little bit of athleticism with like Marc Gasol, seeing how he couldn't catch that entry pass from Quinn Cook? For sure. But you see what the rising tide effect he has on everybody else. Like he's enabling other guys to be able to be the best versions of themselves. Um, Especially if dribbling is not their live ball dribbling isn't their thing. So It's good, man. It's a nice win. I'm actually really excited to go and see how they play the Suns because the
Yeah.
Suns have young guys, they're young bodies, they're active, they're
Mm-hmm.
just as they like to get out in transition. So I just want to see. I want to see how they look. I want to see how the Lakers deal with them. They're not. People have them all up and down. Some people even have them maybe not making the playoffs. But I think that team's going to be really good, and Monty Williams is a good coach. Um, so I don't know if Chris Paul's going to be playing in that series, but I'm sure Devin Booker probably will
Yeah.
in those two games. So I'm very curious to see what happens. And if LeBron and AD play, I want to see how our guys play around them too as well, and how all that stuff fits. So I'm
Well,
excited, man. The IQ and the playmaking of this team has gone up significantly, and I'm really excited for it.
oh, you can certainly see that, and I hope
Yeah.
Chris Paul plays because I kind of want to see THT against him a little bit. Like Chris
Oh yeah.
Paul, obviously the Hall of Famer. He's
Yeah.
amazing. When he was in his prime, I mean, the things he did with the Hornets, dragging them to the playoffs, and I think they had the 2 seed at one point when the Lakers were really good with Kobe and Powell. But I want to see Talen against someone like him and see how he
Yeah.
performs. Um, we do have a question from the comments that was directed specifically to you, Vinay. Just how
Yeah.
many minutes do you think Talen is going to get in a rotation?
So last year, so it has to start from the top. So Bentley, thank you for that question. It starts from the top to the bottom, right? So last year, LeBron and AD played about 34 minutes each, which was not even a full 3 quarters worth of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much lower those numbers get, especially if AD is serious about winning the MVP. Which I don't think he is. I think he's just kind of screwing around. Maybe he's half serious or whatever it is. So let's assume that those two guys are getting their 34 minutes. You're basically going to have to look at, and we know that Kuzma is the direct substitution for LeBron at
Mm-hmm.
his position, and Markieff is probably the direct substitution, or Montrez is the direct substitution for AD. Um, you're probably looking at like, I want to say like 15 to 20, maybe up to 25 minutes, 24 minutes, like worth of minutes that you could possibly allocate to Tucker, depending on what happens with the games. If the Lakers are
Right.
going into fourth quarters with blowouts, meaning they're up 15 plus, Frank Vogel may feel confident enough to give the full fourth quarter to Talen Horton-Tucker just to keep the pressure on teams and have fresh legs on the court and stuff like that. So if he's taking minutes away from anybody, I think it's going to be guys like Wes Matthews. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be guys like the older guys. I think that's
Right.
who Talen takes the minutes away from. I don't think he's taking minutes away from Kuzma. I don't think he's taking minutes away from Caruso. One thing, and we don't know this yet because the extension deadline hasn't been hit for those guys yet. But Caruso and Kuzma are like Rob Pelinka is firmly aware that they also want to get paid as well. And the Lakers are a franchise that is aware of what it is that their players want to succeed at, both on court and off the court as well. So, as much as Kendrick Perkins wants to allude to the Eddie Jones, Kobe Bryant situation of minutes distribution and role distribution, all three of those guys can play together. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lineup of um, Tucker, Caruso, and Kuzma that can exist on the court depending on what the opposing team is playing. So the number that I would try to look at that's probably ideal for him is like somewhere between like 15 and 24. Uh, but that's entirely dependent on how these games go, right? It's entirely dependent on um, whether Frank wants to even play him or not, situationally or whatever it may be. My guess is all the back to backs that the Lakers have, LeBron's probably not going to be playing in them. That means that Tucker's going to be getting a whole bunch of minutes for them. So I don't know what his per game average will end up being by the end of the season, but I think he's going to have a lot of games where he gets like 30 plus minutes because
Yep.
somebody's sitting out. And like I said, that's a good problem to have because when you have to throw him in there in a pinch for whatever reason, it'll be great. Lakers did that last season with Kuzma, right? Like Bron's had out a couple games and then Kuzma went in and put up like 26, and then he put
Mm-hmm.
up 30. It's a good problem to have. So I would guess like if I'm Vogel, he's probably trying to squeeze in like 15 to 24 minutes for him, without eating any young guys minutes in the process.
Yeah, I agree. He'll certainly in those back to backs. I think it'll depend on the situation of whoever the Lakers are playing against. If we're up double digits in fourth quarters, there's opportunities for him to play there. For if you're good, Frank is going to find minutes for you. That's just the
Yeah,
bottom line. He'll find minutes
Number
for you.
Yeah, number one rule is he's got to defend. So if Tucker goes in, and even if he's putting up 30, if he's giving up 35 and he can't stay in front of this guy, he's not going to
Right.
play. That's the number one rule. So, but he'll get the chance. I'm sure he'll get the chance.
Well, Vinay, I guess we can close out on that, man. Do you have any parting words after this victory?
I won't be surprised if Bleacher Report picks Talen Horton-Tucker as their new Laker darling, and the rest of NBA Twitter is sick of
Yeah.
Lakers Nation and Lakers Twitter for promoting him. Last season, Alex Caruso was just the bald meme guy, and then he ended up starting a finals in which the Lakers blew out Miami. And he's clearly not a meme. He's clearly a great player. We may be running into the same situation again with Talen Horton-Tucker. So it's like I said, we've been saying it over and over again. This is a good problem to have. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how it all works out for the Lakers.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious tomorrow when the national media, all the big shows talk about, NBA this weekend, and see if Talen Horton-Tucker comes up in any of their conversations. If he does, then I already know where the season's going to go with him. He's going to be on all these different memes that come up on social media. Sites like Bleacher Report are going to be talking about him all the time. And you're right. The other fan bases will get upset and then try to devalue him. And we've seen this before. So I'm just
one
happy.
last thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, one last thing. It's anybody who's been watching this or listening to our podcast, just know that I'm sincere when I say this. Tucker and Kuzma are very, very good complementary pieces to each other. So if the national media starts saying that Kuzma's time is up with the Lakers, it's not because of their skills. It's not because of anything like that. It's because it's just because they want to drive controversy and stuff like that. And I trust the Lakers locker room to have things like balanced out. LeBron has publicly said, or he's publicly tweeted that the guy that he thinks is going to be most improved or whatever, or the next guy who's going to stand out is going to be Kuzma. So he's given his public stamp of approval to Kuzma as well. But we know how ESPN operates and how national media operates. It's got to be Lakers and it's got to be dysfunction. And this team loves each other, man, like top to bottom. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just trust me when I say that these two guys can play together and they can be successful together. That's all I have to say.
No, this team is good. They're probably better than even I thought that they would be this quick, given how quickly they've had to turn around since winning a championship. So I'm curious to see what they look like against the Suns. If LeBron and Anthony Davis play, I want to see how all the players kind of, they've had a couple games without the two big fish, right? I want to see what they now look like when LeBron and Anthony Davis are back on the court, and that kind of changes things. So all I can tell Lakers fans out there who are watching or might listen to this pod, just be happy. Like, soak it all in. That's going to be my theme all year long. Like, just soak all this in. Last year was tough. We didn't know if the season was going to restart. Who knew what was going to happen? But we got basketball. The Lakers won. And now we have a great opportunity to do something special and potentially repeat. So soak it all up and enjoy it. Thank you guys for tuning in to the pregame we did earlier. Thank you for tuning in to this postgame. And you've been listening to Lakers Central.